Hey, what is up, party people? I'm back. Been around the block here since we last spoke. A lot going on in the old hobby world. Big event this summer, but we're not going to talk about any of that stuff. Uh, going to talk a little bit about the past, okay, and possibly some present in there as well. Ever since I was a young boy, I was been fascinated with the baseball stadiums. I kind of feel like there's something about a stadium or an arena that just really grabs me. I'm a fan of architecture, but I'm particularly a fan of stadiums, both baseball, football, and then, like I said, arenas as well. But perhaps we'll talk about arenas in the future, because I've been to a few arenas. When I say a few, I mean dozens and dozens and dozens. A lot of history there, but I want to talk about baseball stadiums and how kind of like they just grip me. Each one wonderful in its own right, some obviously better than others. But we're going to talk a little bit about, and we're going to have some pictures. So if you're watching, first of all, if you're watching, I apologize. Just had my teeth cleaned. So it might be a little tough on you guys. You might want to turn the contrast down on your computer just to save you. And maybe you can even hear, if you're listening to the podcast, how clean my teeth sound through the airwaves. Anyway, stadiums, right? Stadiums. I've been fascinated forever. I am a history fan. I'm a history of baseball fan, and I am a baseball stadium fan there. I said it. I'm not going to talk too much about cards here today. We're going to talk about the history. Stadium's been around a bit. They picture me there at the Coliseum in Rome. Lots of shenanigans went on there. And of course, lots of shenanigans went on uh, in the baseball world with the stadiums as well. Uh, as long as I can remember, my family has been baseball fans, and my mom in particular. I grew up, or I was born, within a couple miles of Connie Mack Stadium, formerly known as Shibe Park. Shibe Park, built in 1909, and last game was in 1970. And me being born in '68, so summer '68, summer '69, summer '70, I will have had three opportunities to see the Philadelphia Phillies there. And I'm sure, knowing my parents, we would have gone. Now, I asked my brothers, Mike and Dick, um, birth names Joe and Paul, about any experiences, and they don't seem to recall being there, but they don't recall not being there either. So, in my mind, I was taken as a youngin to 21st and Lehigh to see the Philadelphia Phillies at some point in my early years. Of course, the A's played there as well. The Philadelphia A's, which the stadium, I think in 1950 something, was named Connie Mack Stadium. 53, I think it was. 55 Bowman color set has a wonderful backdrop to all the photos, and that is Connie Mack Stadium. Wonderful series of cards, and I urge you guys and gals to check them out for sure. So, not sure if I've been there before, but I'm pretty sure I have. But of course, I grew up in Veterans Stadium. I've said before that my father, one of the firms that he did the books for, had season tickets, and we thought we were the cock of the walk, as they say sometimes. We'd go to a lot of games. It seemed like hundreds in my mind, but it was probably more like a few dozen over the course of 6, 7, 8 years. And anyway, I grew up in that stadium, mostly joined at my mother with my mother at the hip, sitting along first base, while Mike and Dick sat in two seats along the third base. Uh, Later in life, I realized that there was no weekend games, there was no giveaway games, so we kind of got, I guess, we got the tickets that nobody else wanted. But I felt like it was the most amazing experience ever. Some people consider it a dump, but to me, the vet is everything. I saw Mike Schmidt play there, Greg Luzinski, Steve Carlton, Pete Rose. I have a ticket here from the final season, 2003, April 27th. This one says Phillies versus Giants. I'm sure a lot of long balls happened there by the Barry Bonds. So I'll look that game up later on. Was fortunate enough to participate as a fan in 2 All-Star games. 1976 All-Star game at the Vet. Really, look at that box score sometime. You'll see some great players that played there. Of course, Mark Fidrich and Randy Jones started that game for the respective leagues. The place was packed. I got a nice shot of me here in a bucket hat with a gentleman blowing smoke while the cops wait to take me away behind me. Also saw the 1996 All-Star game. Have a little ticket here from that. Joseph, my brother Joseph, and I sat way up in the upper deck, 700 level, the kids call it, while my brother Paul ran around the press level with his press friends at the time. I don't know how he finagled a ticket there, but we had a good time there for sure. 1980 World Series Game 1. That's the only postseason game I've ever been to as a sports fan, I guess, or as a baseball fan. Been to plenty of postseason games for the Eagles, but as a baseball fan, World Series Game 1, Bob Walk against those American League champion Kansas City Royals. Moving on, Citizens Bank, of course. Boy, we'd see Citizens Bank Park. But before we move there, 2000 here. This is my son Sean. That's in his third year at the level 700. 717 is the section. That's where we had our season tickets for the Eagles. So my son and I watched a baseball game from up there. He's now 26 years old as of 4 days from now. So it was a long time ago in a world far, far away. Of course, the Phillies are playing in Citizens Bank Ballpark right now. And been to a bunch of games there, but really it is just a Buffalo Wild Wings with a baseball game being played live in the background, which is what many stadiums are, of course. So 1980, my father is legally forced to take the summer off as he had accumulated too much vacation time as the fiscal coordinator for the school district of Philadelphia. So they kicked him out for the summer. So we drove across country, camped, saw the sights, all that fun stuff. Got to see all the national parks, but we got to drive past Royal Stadium in Kansas City on the way to Busch Stadium. Now, we didn't get to see a game at Busch Stadium in St. Louis, but that's Mike, Dick, and myself in the Cardinals dugout, 1980, summer of. And there's me doing a little yaz at the home plate. Of course, you couldn't do anything like that these days. I don't know whether we just walked in or what we were doing, but we were doing whatever we wanted to on that field. Lou Brock, Billy Almond, Lou Brock breaking Ty Cobb's stolen base record, me calling him safe right there. So that was fun. That was my first foreign stadium. And I say foreign, I mean outside of Philadelphia. Later that year, I guess in September, my father would take my mother and I to see the Red Sox and my beloved Carl Yastrzemski play at Yankee Stadium. This is a picture my father took, and I can't tell what the heck's going on. We sat way up there, but it was glorious. Next year, we would end up going to a series in 1982 or 81. We'd go to we saw the Toronto Blue Jays play at Fenway Park, and if you've ever been to Fenway Park, the first time you walk through the gates and then see the field, it really is a very moving experience for most people. I've witnessed that myself, and I've witnessed it through other people's eyes in the interim years. I've been to games there, I guess, in 81 or 82, 92, and 2022. My wife has orders to sprinkle some of my ashes at Fenway Park. I'm looking forward to seeing her invade the field, run out there and sprinkle a little bit of me and be taken off in flex cuffs. That would be great. Can't wait to see that from above or below, wherever I end up. I went to a game there last summer, Red Sox versus some other team from some other league, or maybe even the same league. I don't know anymore. And the gentleman I was with, I pointed to the mound and I said, that's where Babe Ruth pitched for the Boston Red Sox, which is kind of a deep, deep thought, as Stuart Smiley might say, but pretty cool to imagine that happening. Of course, Babe hit a bunch of homers there. Carlton Fisk with that left field foul pole over the monster. And Teddy Ballgame did some of his best work there as well. So there I am. The rest of the 80s, I'm kind of watching games on my own down at the Vet, seeing Kevin Gross get ejected for having sandpaper in his glove, and watching cats run on the field, watching Lance Parrish get booed, Juan Samuel strike out 3 million times. Great time in the 80s. And I started to travel more around the late 80s and into the 90s. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these games or some of these stadiums that I visited without actually seeing a baseball game. Here we go. 1990. I worked for a band that opened up for Grateful Dead. The band was called Crosby, Stills, and Nash. We did a couple stadiums with the Grateful Dead, and that's Three River Stadium. I only visited the Three River Stadium was through the eyes of concert and a bunch of stoned out people. It smelled like a bus stop in Bangladesh, and there really is no explanation for that. Same summer, got to go to Tiger Stadium, and we talked about Crosby, Stills, and Nash. I went to this game with this is probably 3 or 4 months into the tour. I went to this game with a couple other guys and Steven Stills, and Steven Stills is road manager. And about 3/4 of the way through the game, Steven Stills asked his road manager, "Who are those guys that are at the game with us?" Not remembering that he had seen us every day for the last 3 or 4 months. Tiger Stadium is just as wonderful as you could have imagined. Ty Cobb was there. Reggie Jackson hit one into the light transformer. The 71 All-Star game is epic. Of course, Hank Greenberg did all his things there. Denny McClain pitched off a 10-foot tall pitcher's mound. Just some great, great history there. I missed that ballpark. I'm sure a lot of Detroit and Michiganders also missed that park as well. Now, in the summer of 1990, one of my biggest regrets, again, I don't know why everything goes back to Steven Stills, but I missed going to a game at Comiskey Park in the summer of 1990. I believe that was closing in on their final year, if not their last year at the old Comiskey. And that's really probably my biggest regret is not witnessing a game there for sure in 1990. And the reason being is I was golfing with Steven Stills and watching him hit anything that would move other than the golf ball. Went through a couple golf clubs that day, but anyway, good times had by all in 1990. Now, moving on to 1991, gets a little tricky here, okay? And this qualifies as a Major League Baseball stadium. So 1958, do we want to call it? The Dodgers moved from Brooklyn to Los Angeles. The Coliseum was the home. I'm not sure how many years they played there, 1, 2, maybe a couple more, but here's a shot of, I think it was the most attended baseball game, maybe up to that point or something. Anyway, almost 80,000 people seeing the Dodgers play there. Attendance would be rather normal throughout the rest of that season, but it's quite an impressive shot to see that many people watching a baseball game in the Coliseum. Of course, 1991, back with the Grateful Dead at the Coliseum in L.A. The smells weren't any better, but it was interesting seeing 90,000 deadheads in South Central Los Angeles. Certainly a clash of the culture. There's my backstage pass there. Grateful Dead, Johnny Clegg and Savuka, June 1st, 1991. John is what it says, because I never answered when somebody said John, because there was always 2 or 3 or 4 Johns in the proximity at any given time. So I got the name John. People still call me that every now and then to this day, which is both a blessing and a curse. 1992. I'm kind of like, we're kind of getting towards the end of my baseball hyper fandom, and you'll see why here in a few. But 1992, I was out on the road with another band, actually a single solo act, and got to see a game at Milwaukee County Stadium. And when I say game, I mean a football game. It was the Eagles versus the Packers, a young quarterback, November 1992, named Brett Favre. Baseball stadium configured for a football game. Yes, the Green Bay Packers would play a couple games a year in Milwaukee and the rest of their schedule at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. So I want to say they played 2 games in Milwaukee and 6 games in Lambeau. Somebody can correct me on that. So here's the field, and what I found most interesting about this when I was watching the game, I was right behind home plate, which is great for a baseball game, but not so much for a football game. Both teams were situated on the same sideline in the outfield. So both the home and the visitors would be in the far sideline, and then photographers and other riffraff on the near sideline. I assume that is meant to cut the wear and tear down on the infield itself, or maybe it was a sightline thing because you only had coaching boxes on one side of the stadium. So either or, it's one of those things, or maybe it's both. But both teams would be on the same sideline, sharing the same sideline, which I thought was very interesting. Very, very cold day that day. And then, I think the Packers won that game at the end there on a couple field goals or something. Very next week, that's not it. The very next week, I'm in Minneapolis, and this is how I remember the Metrodome, the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome, folded in roof. I saw a very vanilla Minnesota Vikings host the Cleveland Browns. So Sean Salisbury was the quarterback. But they do play baseball there. They did play baseball there. I didn't get to see a game there, but that counts as an official trip to an official baseball stadium in my book. So moving on, a couple years later, back on the road there with the band, and we played the Suncoast Dome in St. Petersburg, Florida, now known as Tropicana Field. Boy, what a dump that place is. I think everybody kind of gets that same vibe, but really crappy place for a concert, a crappy place for a baseball game, and been around forever. That stadium is 30 plus years old now. I don't know how long the Rays have been around, but really tear down the wall, as they say. So that place reminds me kind of the Tokyo Dome in Tokyo. Same kind of setup, very boring, same crappy ambiance. Let's talk a little bit about one you folks didn't think I would bring up here. Okay, this here is Mile High Stadium in Denver. Yep, that's where the Rockies played, and I remember going to a game there with the Rockies, and I sat probably in the last-ish row in the left field bleachers for this. And one of the cool things about that is the bleachers moved back on a track, so they would be enclosed um, as a horseshoe for football games, and then the entire left field bleachers would move back on tracks to give proper dimensions for a football field. It was home to the Rockies in 1993 and 94. I probably went to a game there in 1993. If I'm not mistaken, it's probably still to this day, the baseball attendance record was set there. Let's see here, 4,483,000 people went in 1993. 79 home dates, which equals 81 games when you count two doubleheaders, average of 56,751 personnel per home game. So they were apparently on pace to exceed that the next year, but of course the strike done messed everything up. So yeah, that's that. 1993. 1993 also saw me visit Wrigley Field. Sat behind home plate there. Wonderful time. Everybody knows about Wrigley. Don't need to show any boring pictures with that. Let's see where I can go from here. So I have been to the Coors Field Stadium as well. That happened later on in the decade. So able to watch the Rockies at Coors Field and able to watch the Rockies at Mile High Stadium. Pretty fun. 93 as well. This is a picture of a hotel room. It's not my hotel room, but I stayed in a hotel room very similar to this at the end of 1993 while playing the Sky Dome in Toronto with a band. Somewhere around Thanksgiving in 1993. Our hotel rooms were right there looking out at the field, but of course there was no AstroTurf on the ground. It was all concrete and no games were to be played. So I've stayed there a couple times. Pretty fun little hotel. Obviously, you're in a baseball stadium. I'm not sure what it's like now, but these were, 30 years ago, 25 years ago. I stayed at some of these Sky Dome rooms, and really fun. Really kind of makes you feel like a little boy. Gets you all excited again. That's for sure. Moving on. Dodger Stadium, 1993. I want to say 1994, probably the spring of '94. Got to see Chan Ho Park pitch his very first game in baseball. And of course, the strike would come later on. I sat way up in whatever color those seats are, high in the upper deck. But Dodger Stadium was a pretty mythical place for East Coast people back in the '70s. A lot went on down there. Obviously, several World Series in the 70s. Just, of course, that's where the Happy Days softball team would play as well before games. So really fun going there for the first time as an adult and reliving a bit of my past as well. Visited again in the late 90s. I want to say 97 or 98 or maybe even further, maybe even later than that. But Hideo Nomo pitched the second time I went there. So got to see Chan-Ho Park and Hideo Nomo in the same stadium. Pretty darn cool. Somewhere in the mid-90s there, this happened, right? 21-31, Cal Ripken breaks Lou Gehrig's consecutive games streak. Camden Yards, first of its kind, a throwback, and we talk a little bit about, maybe we'll talk about the new Comiskey later on. It's called Guaranteed Rate Field or whatever, but built around the same time. But Camden Yards, they nailed it, the old-timey look. Now, the Orioles never quite had an old-timey stadium. That Memorial Stadium they had in Baltimore was didn't really have a lot of personality or aesthetic charm. Of course, it had the fans and all that fun stuff and a little bit of history, but wasn't much to look at, as they say about me. And this place, though, Camden Yards, incredible. So leading up to Cal's game, everybody knew when it was going to happen, of course, once they started playing baseball again. So I think that was 1995, right? So they hung some banners, and every night they would take down the corresponding numbers and do a big reveal. So 21-31, that's me standing behind the left field. I'm taking the picture, folks, so I'm not in the picture, but I'm standing behind the right field foul pole and flicking the switch on because those are our lights that lit those banner numbers. So really fun. Got to throw those lights on, hit the big breaker, didn't screw up my cue, and that's kind of in the moment. Cal, of course, hit a home run that game, did a lap, all that fun stuff. Now, the next year, 1996, was interesting because unlike knowing the date of 21-31, the Orioles decided we're going to do something big for Eddie Murray's 500th home run. So not knowing when he was going to hit his 500th home run, they came up with a scheme to I proposed that on we put plastic on the back of certain windows on the warehouse, and we backlight them with orange lights. It's called Roscoe 22 is the gel, in case you're wondering. And we spell 500 out, backlighting various windows on the warehouse. Looked great. Wrote all these wonderful cues. Good time had by all. Well, I went to the ballpark for several weeks straight during a homestand. Eddie Murray did not hit his 500th home run, but I got to interact with people such as Ken Griffey Jr. in his prime and Mark McGwire in his prime. He was with the A's back then. And got to just run around that ballpark and do all sorts of fun stuff, getting paid for it and all that stuff, inside, outside, around it, all that fun stuff. So got to know the park pretty well, between the Cal thing, between the Eddie Murray non-thing, and the Orioles Fan Fest, which they would have in their stadium every year. Now, every day I'd go out in the center field by the batter's eye and wait for home run balls to be hit during batting practice. And that's when I became a big fan of Ken Griffey Jr. because he would sit there and talk to nobody me and just act like the kid that he came off on TV as. So fun little project for me as an employee, but even more so as a baseball fan. What is this? You say this is RFK Stadium, where the Washington Senators, several iterations of the Washington Senators and the Washington Nationals would eventually play. I never saw a baseball game there, but I worked on did the lighting for many events called the HF Festival, which had great bands like Garbage and Foo Fighters and Everclear and all sorts of fun stuff. So kind of a summer ritual, but RFK, one of those pseudo cookie cutter stadiums. Obviously, the Redskins played there, but so did the Senators of the 60s and early 70s. And I do believe the Washington Nationals did a little dirty work there as well. Moving on. Where are we going to go here? So Riverfront Stadium in 1997. Got to see a game there against the Giants, the old Riverfront Stadium. Love that. Oakland Coliseum was in 2002. I swear I was one of 300 people in the stands, but I loved watching because the magic that happened in that building from 71 to 75 was just phenomenal. Great teams, lots of tension there between the teams and the team and the owners, and the different uniforms and the mustaches and all that fun stuff. So good times had there. 2004 went to Pac Bell Park to see the Giants play. What you need to know about Pac Bell Park, and I think Mark Twain said it best, where he said the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. So you get real cold real fast there at what was called Pac Bell Park. I don't know what it's called anymore. 2009, I was in Pittsburgh all summer working on a movie and got to go to PNC Park, wonderful park. I haven't heard anybody say anything negative about the park itself. They're just waiting for a Major League Baseball team there, but for it to really hit its stride. But wonderful, wonderful ballpark. So skip a few years ahead, and after falling in love with my baseball cards again and sport, I made a promise to myself that I would never have any regrets when it came to stadiums anymore. So 2021, summer 2021, I got to see a White Sox game at Guaranteed Rate Field, which was built originally as the new Comiskey or Cellular One or whatever you want to call it. And it was a dump when it came out. Lots of complaints about it. Of course, when your youngest brother is Camden Yards, you're never going to look good against that. But I will tell you that my visit to Guaranteed Rate Field in 2021 was impressed with the stadium. They really did a lot in the ensuing years to make it look like a serviceable stadium. Yeah, it's I guess it was an exciting White Sox team back then in 2021, maybe even 2022. But I'm hearing they're tanking right now. But I enjoyed that park. It wasn't just something to check off the list. It was, again, I spent much of this baseball. You can people watch, stadium watch, all that stuff. So thoroughly enjoyed my time there a few years back at that stadium on the south side. Yankee Stadium 2023, April of 2023. Me and a colleague went up to see the new Yankee Stadium, and it's not as fun as the old Yankee Stadium, but we got to see Shohei Ohtani and Michael Trout, the Millville Meteor, and the Philadelphia Eagles' biggest celebrity fan play. And I tell people one of the fun things I saw was Shohei Ohtani reach first base on a catcher's interference, steal second base, go to third on the overthrow on his steal, and then score on a sacrifice fly. Pretty incredible talent, obviously, Shohei Ohtani. My only hope for Shohei Ohtani is that he plays for 12 to 15 more years, because what a wonderful gift he is to a sport that has right now a very dim candle in my mind. There's not a lot going on in baseball to get jazzed about other than Shohei Ohtani. And not to be outdone by his work there at the new Yankee Stadium. In May, I had the chance to go to the Angels Stadium. That's the Angels of Anaheim, California, Pacific Coast Angels of Anaheim. I don't know what Orange County, whatever the hell they call themselves these days, but I got to see the Angels and the A's play. Shohei was pitching, and Shohei was going right along until the fifth inning, and he just decided to do something different, gave up a bunch of runs. But Shohei also almost hit for the cycle that day, so he ended up winning the game, I believe. So anyway, my quest to go to as many baseball stadiums as possible will continue. I think I'm up to 26 right now, or baseball stadiums that have had baseball games played in a Major League Baseball game. So I'm up to 26. Maybe I can hit some more this year. There's some that I should have been to by now that are still in existence, and obviously there's some that are long gone, like Comiskey, that I'll never get to go to. But go to a stadium, see a game, watch the people. Hopefully you can listen to an organist and aren't inundated with too many credit card commercials. just enjoy the experience. Hopefully, you can smell the grass and all that fun stuff. Don't have any regrets. If a ballpark is within reach, make it happen. Hopefully, you'll have the same joy I have in these parks, stadiums, whatever. There's a lot of history that goes on in most of them, except for Tampa Bay. So, or St. Petersburg, whatever the kids call it. Enjoy that experience. My kid, my young son, who's about to turn 26, texted me last night before I went to bed and said, "Hey, how about we hit up a ball game?" Which is pretty darn cool. So hopefully we'll be doing that in the next couple weeks, going to see the Phillies play as a family, like it should be done, and throw down some hot dogs. The kids will be drinking beer. The wife will probably have I don't know, some sort of nutrition infusion via IV, whatever they sell at stadiums these days. So good times. Go to the park. Make some friends if you're into friends. I'm personally not, but meet some people, meet some new foods, heckle the ball players because that's part of the tradition as well. And don't forget to overpay for parking and beer. Thanks, folks, for listening. Hopefully, we'll see you guys, gals, children of all ages real soon. Maybe I'll get on this microphone again in the near term. If not, we'll catch you later. Be good to each other. Be good to yourself. Enjoy your collection. Remember, enjoy collecting. And more importantly, enjoy your collection. Good day to all. Thanks.